Hi, I'm Chef Tyler White, and I'm here today to show you guys how to make black beans and all the different things we can do with it. All of the ingredients we got today came from Big Orange Pantry, with the exception of some of our proteins and dairy items that you may have to supplement from your house. So we're going to start with black beans in a more conventional way of cooking them, and we're going to talk about cooking black beans on the stovetop. Before we start working with our black beans, we have 1 pound dried black beans. I've sorted and rinsed them already. The reason we do that is we're looking for little clumps of clay, little rocks, anything that may have got in there with the beans during packaging, during harvesting. So we've rinsed them. Now we have two options on how to rehydrate the beans. So option one is taking our beans, placing them in a large container, covering them with water, and you want about 3 to 4 fingers worth of water on top of those beans. Enough so that when they're rehydrating, they don't run out of water. And as we come in, we'll see these beans double to triple in size. So a properly soaked bean is going to be 2 to 3 times the size of the dry bean. In order to rehydrate, this takes 6 to 8 hours and is best done overnight. Make sure you guys are using cool water. Put a piece of plastic wrapper, lid on it, put it off to the side. When you're ready to cook your beans the next day, you'll drain your water and we can start cooking with them. If you don't have 6 to 8 hours, we can do the quick soak method. The quick soak method requires putting the beans in a pot, adding water to cover them, bring them to a boil, allow them to boil for 2 to 5 minutes, turn it off, keep the lid on it, set it to the side for an hour. Both of these methods will help in rehydrating the beans, which will cut down on cooking time. So, I have my soaked beans. We're going to drain them. We have our large sauce pot that we're going to use to cook our beans. The beans are not going to grow much more in volume from this state. Now we're going to start breaking them down, making them soft. So we're going to go ahead and add our beans to the pot. Okay. The water really is not used for anything else. We can discard the water. It's not something that we want to cook the beans in. We're going to add some different flavoring items. We're going to add some whole kernel corn. We're going to add some rotel. I'm using original rotel. You could use the cilantro rotel. You could use the spicy rotel, the low sodium rotel. You could just use tomatoes. We're adding tomatoes for a specific reason. Tomatoes add acid, which is going to help break these beans down a little bit quicker. It's going to add flavor when we're cooking them. So 1 can of whole kernel corn. This is a sweet corn, so we're talking about flavor building and flavor profiling. I'm adding something sweet. I'm adding something acidic with our tomatoes and peppers. 2 cans of the rotel. To keep things simple, I'm using a fajita seasoning. You can use your own seasoning blend that you like at home for tacos, fajitas, chili. These are nice to buy. They run somewhere between 50 cents and $1. And when I use this, I don't have to buy the 5 or 6 different spices that go into making this. So it's affordable to be able to get. We're going to add 1 packet of your favorite seasoning mix. And we're going to add chicken stock. You could use pork stock, you could use bone broth, you could use whatever sort. If you want to keep these vegetarian, use water. Okay? For 1 pound of rehydrated beans, we're going to add about 6 cups of our stock. Okay? We're going to place our lid on our pot. We're going to turn it on. We're going to allow these to simmer for anywhere from 1.5 hours to 2 hours, or until the beans are tender. The only way to tell if they're tender is to grab a spoon, stick it in, and eat it. If you notice that there's a lot of liquid in here, remove the lid, allow them to simmer without the lid on. That's going to allow the stock to evaporate and it will result in a black beans that's not so watery or with too much liquid in it. If you have even less time than doing the quick soak method or the overnight method, I'm now going to show you how to do an Instant Pot method that can be done in about an hour. So when we have very little time, you want to set it and forget it and make dinner very quickly, or lunch, or whatever we want to do with these beans. The Instant Pot is a really neat way to be able to make beans in a really quick period of time. You can use another form of pressure cooker if you want, but when we cook under pressure, it's going to severely reduce the amount of time we have to cook these beans. We're going to use the same recipe we use for our conventional way of doing it. I have my 1 pound of rinsed and sorted black beans. We're going to go ahead and put those in dry. No soaking, no leaving them overnight. Dry beans that we've sorted. I'm going to add 2 cans of Rotel, 1 can of corn. We left all the liquid in here. In both recipes, we left all the liquid in the corn, all the liquid in the tomatoes. I'm going to add my fajita seasoning. For this recipe though, because I'm cooking under pressure and all that steam is going to stay inside, I can add less stock, less water. I'm only going to add 4 cups or 1 quart of chicken broth or water to this. Okay. We're going to attach our lid. Okay, we're locking it into place. I'm going to use the pressure cooker, normal, for 30 minutes. Okay, we're going to allow this to cook for 30 minutes on normal pressure. Then we're going to allow it to sit for another 30 minutes on low pressure. So our machine's turning on. Once it switches from on and it builds pressure and it builds heat, we're going to start seeing a countdown timer that'll go on. We're going to let it count down all the way. It'll come back on once it's done. It'll have an L by it and it'll start counting up. So we want it to count down 30 minutes and count up 30 minutes. If you walk away, you go to the store, you do something, it's fine. It can sit longer than 30 minutes when it's counting back up. Don't worry about it. When you come back, it'll be ready to go. So we're back. It's been an hour. Our beans are done. The timer's counted up to 30 minutes. We're going to release the pressure so that we can open this up. It's very important that we release the pressure. It's going to hold the lid together if we don't release it. So be careful. Don't put your hands there. Let it release, and then we can go ahead and remove our lid. As we bring it up, we're going to see our beans are cooking. They're still simmering, which is good. Okay, and our beans are ready to go. Now, we have added very little seasoning to our beans up until this point. Okay, we added our fajita seasoning, we added our Rotel that had some different flavoring to it. In order to make it your own, you guys need to start tasting it and figuring out where you want to take it from here. Okay, be careful, they're hot. Okay, as soon as you put them in your mouth, make sure we're blowing on it. Not bad, okay? But we can fix them. A lot of times when we're cooking beans, there's a bitter flavor that comes out and we're gonna feel it in the back of our throat. Different ways we can counteract bitterness. One way to counteract bitterness is like Mary Poppins, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. We can sweeten the beans. I'm not a fan of sweet beans, so I'm not going to add sugar to my beans. The other way we can counteract bitterness is with acid. And we see acid being used on bitter greens. So when you have salads, you have a very strong vinaigrette dressing that goes on it, and that's to counteract the bitterness in those greens. So this is kind of a Mexican feel bean, a Southwest. I'm going to use lime as one of my additives to help cut down on some of the bitterness. I have a lemon presser. You guys can squeeze your hand. You can use lime juice that you get at the grocery store, doesn't matter. Squeeze in fresh lime juice. One of the things to keep in mind when we're cooking, we can always add more. I can't take it away. Okay, so I'm going to add the juice of 1 whole lime. Then I can taste it, and if it's still not where I want, I can add more. It's harder to try to fix something that I've made too sour than it is to try to add as I go. Another way that we can add acidity is using a hot sauce. You could use a buffalo sauce, a Tabasco, a Cholula. This is mostly vinegar. A lot of times they add cayenne pepper or something like that too as a flavoring agent, but we can add hot sauce. Because we use an original Rotel, it's not very spicy. If we use the hot one, maybe it's a little bit hotter, but I'm gonna go ahead and for mine, I like my beans a little spicier, and I'm going to add in some hot sauce. Again, we can add more, you can always add more later on if you want with it as well. Alright, we're gonna give them a good stir. You'll see that this recipe still has a lot of liquid in it. It's not so much that it's a soup, but it's still enough that if we were serving this right away, we may want to use a slotted spoon to serve it. I'm going to add cilantro. I like cilantro. A lot of people find that cilantro tastes like soap. Okay, we all taste completely differently. When using fresh herbs, we want to add it at the end of the cooking process in order to bring out more flavor. If I added this at the start, it'd be lost in the pressure cooking and that with it. So I'm going to add in some fresh cilantro. Okay, this is going to add flavor notes that we're going to pick up at the front of our tongue. Okay, now we have some of the bitterness that's going to stay at the back, and we're going to have some of the sour that kind of lingers throughout. One of the things we have not added up until this point is a lot of salt. And we don't want to add a lot of salt at the start because it can prohibit the beans from getting tender. Salt is a mineral. No matter what I do with salt, I can never get rid of it inside of this pot of beans. It's always better to salt at the very end. Salt does not take time to develop flavor. As soon as we add it, it's instant salt. I'm using some kosher salt. This is another one of those ones that I can add more, but I can't take it away. All of the old wives' tales of adding a potato does not work. The only way to combat salt is to add fat or to increase volume. Okay, fat is a flavor inhibitor and can help reduce the effects of salt. Can't reduce the amount of sodium in there, but if I increase the volume by adding more chicken stock or adding something else, I can reduce the potency of that salt in there. Okay, another taste test. The only way to know if they're good is to keep tasting them. I can taste the lime. I get a little bit of heat from the hot sauce. My salt's right. Be careful with your chicken broth. This one here does not say low sodium, so it did have sodium in it when we were cooking it. Pay attention to your bottle, add salt at the end, and your beans will turn out just the way you like them. So, we are done with our black beans. We could serve these as a side. I'm now going to show you 3 or 4 different recipes we can do with these black beans, and we'll go from there. First dish that we're going to make with our black beans is a sauteed black bean and smoked sausage and rice dish. I have white rice that we've went ahead and cooked off on a plate ready to go. This is kind of a play on dirty rice. Dirty rice a lot of times is where we're cooking ground beef, beans, and rice all in one pan. I'm utilizing just plain white rice. You could use brown rice or whatever your favorite rice is. We have our fully cooked beans that has our corn and tomatoes and everything in it. I'm using a beef smoked sausage or a kielbasa. And then I have some diced peppers and onions. We're going to heat our pan up with a little bit of oil. I'm using just a vegetable or canola oil. We're going to brown our sausage, add our peppers and onions, add our flavored beans, and that's going to be the dish. This is a nice dish to make because we're adding protein with our sausage. We have protein and fiber in our beans and corn. So we have a nice meal here that we can stretch and use for multiple days if we need to. Okay. When sauteing, make sure we're putting stuff into a hot pan. The best way to test it is to put one in there. If it's not sizzling, wait to add the rest. So we have a little sizzle. We're going to wait a little bit longer before we add everything. Since we're browning our meat, we're going to add our meat first. Then I'll add in my onions and peppers. If we do it in reverse, it's really hard to get good color on your sausage with the peppers and onions kind of scattering in the pan ahead of time. You do not have to put these in cut side down, but it will help with the browning. If you just dump the cup of sausage in there, some of them will stay on their side. This is a ½ pound of sausage, and I'm using about 2 to 3 cups of our black bean mixture. Okay? You could use ground beef here, you could use chicken, you could use whatever you want as the protein. You could also just leave it with black beans and saute up your favorite vegetables. Some grilled zucchini and squash, just onions, peppers, and tomatoes, whatever you guys want. So, as we flip our sausage, we're starting to see some browning happen. This is good. We can flip them all. Feel free to use tongs, a spoon, wherever you like, or just give them a nice toss. Once we flip them, it's going to be safe to go ahead and start adding our peppers and onions. So I'm using some red onion, green bell pepper. The ratios are not important, okay? What's important is that you're adding what you like. If you want to add in some chopped garlic and other flavors, you're more than welcome to. If you don't like peppers and onions, don't add peppers and onions. We can go from sausage and beans, okay? Use your spoon unless you're comfortable, and then we can work on sauteing and flipping the items. So we can get these airborne, we're tossing them around, we're putting them back on the heat to make sure our pan does not cool down. All of this smoke and steam that we see is water vapor coming out, okay, and that's coming from the peppers and the onions and the sausage that we have in here. We want to continue to cook this until the peppers and onions start to become tender. The onions will start to turn a little bit clear. They call it translucent. Red onions don't get quite as translucent as yellow onions, but we should be able to see visually these peppers and onions softening up. So our onions and peppers and sausage have been cooking for about 3 to 5 minutes. It's time to go ahead and add our beans. Okay. As we're adding our beans, we can see the corn still maintained its shape, but our tomatoes have started to break down, which is okay. We'll give it a nice toss. Now, these beans can be saved in the refrigerator for up to 7 days, and they're perfectly fine to pull out. You may have noticed on this batch that I didn't have a lot of liquid in there. As we refrigerate the beans are going to absorb any of that extra stock that's there and make them a little bit thicker, and that's why these ones are a little bit thicker. We'd already cooled them down. We added them in here. We're going to bring this up to a good boil. Anytime we're reheating something, whether it's beans, whether it's chicken, we want to make sure we reach at least 165 degrees. When you're working with soups and stews and things like we're cooking today, as long as we see lots of bubbles and it's boiling, we know we're over 165 because water boils at 212. Okay. Our bean dish is done. We can turn off our stove, we can pull off our bowl of rice, and we can work on plating. This is going to be enough for 3 to 4 people, right? We're using 2 to 3 cups of beans, half a pound of sausage, really easy to stretch it out. So we have our white rice here. We can come in, top our rice with our fresh green peppers, tomato, sausage. Okay, to garnish, we can add some of our cilantro for color. Okay, we can add a wedge of lime if we want to add lime on there. Okay, and this would be ready to go. So this is our version of a quick and easy possible dirty rice dish, utilizing smoked sausage and our black beans that we made. Next dish we're going to make is something very, very simple. We're gonna take flour tortillas and make bean burritos. This we can do right out of the Instant Pot, right out of the pan that we cooked on the stove, but a quick and easy way, and you can use whatever leftovers you have at home to make the burrito. So I have our black beans here that we cooked on the stove. Okay, I have a little bit of shredded chicken. I didn't have shredded lettuce, so I went with shredded arugula. This is gonna add a peppery flavor. Again, use what you guys have at home. Don't go to the store and buy things that are unnecessary. It's your burrito. Make it the way you like it. We have some sour cream. I have some peppers, onion, tomato. Again, cilantro and lime go really well with the beans. So we're gonna keep adding things like that. I liked on my burrito start out with a little bit of sour cream. Sour cream has a lot of fat in it, and it's going to help the burrito from getting really soggy. So we'll put this down first. Then as I add my beans and things like that, the bean juice has to penetrate the sour cream in order to have any chance of getting to my flour tortilla. So I like to put that down first. I also like to put cheese first. That way when I'm adding my beans, my cheese melts. Whenever we go to the Mexican restaurants and things like that where we can build our own, they always put cheese on last and it's never melted. So I'm going to add my cheese first. Make sure we're paying attention to the size on here. Whether you're using 8, 10, or 12-inch tortilla, you want about 2 fingers gap on either side so that we can make sure that we can fold it later. So I'm going to add my cooked beans now so that it'll help melt my cheese. we're going to use very little. This is about a half a cup of beans. Okay. Most people mess up burritos by making them too big. They're not meant to be that big with this small tortilla. Okay. I have some shredded chicken here that we're going to use. This could be rotisserie chicken from a previous night's meal. This could be whatever chicken you want. It could be pork, it could be ground beef. Again, we could keep it vegetarian and not put anything. So I have some shredded chicken on there. I'm going to add some diced tomatoes, raw onion. We have onion and stuff in our rotel, but now when we add it raw, we're adding different textures, different flavors. I like to put my lettuce on last, and that has to do with the same thing with my cheese, right? So if I'm putting this on last and it's going on those cold veggies, I don't have to worry so much about my lettuce getting wilted and stuff on there. We could add cilantro, we can add lime if we want. To roll our burrito, we're going to fold sides up. Using our thumbs, we're going to grab the back end of our tortilla. Okay, you have to use both hands. Sides up, back up, go over, and pull back. Okay, I tuck in my sides here. I'm pulling back, and I'm going to continue to roll. Okay, that's how we're going to get a nice tight burrito. Now, if at home you refrigerate your tortillas, microwave them gently in the microwave 10 to 20 seconds to soften them up. A warm tortilla is going to roll a whole lot better than an ice cold tortilla. If your tortillas are a little bit old and a little bit stale, microwaving them, sprinkle with a little bit of water, pop them in the microwave, that'll freshen them back up, and they're good to go. You can top this with whatever salsa you want, melted cheese, anything you have at home, or you can pick it up and it's good to go from here. So this is our quick and easy burrito. All right, next thing we can do is with the beans. If we're trying to stretch our beans all week, we got to be creative with what we do. So we made our rice and bean dish. We used our cooked beans to make a burrito. Now we want something different. I took our black beans and I used an immersion blender. Some people call it a stick blender, where we stick it in and we can puree it. You can use a blender at home, a food processor, anything you want, but I pureed our beans and turned it into a refried black bean or a bean paste, whatever you want to call it. What we're going to work on now is making a tostada. Okay? Our tostada is basically an open-faced taco. We can put anything that we'd put inside our taco on top of our tostada. We're going to start with our beans. Okay, put a nice helping of beans on the bottom. This is good if you have friends coming over. Easy to make, easy to put out. Again, with our warm beans, I like to put my cheese on. This time I'm going to use a pepper jack cheese. We're going to add a little bit of spice. Similar items to the burrito. We're going to add some diced onion, some bell pepper, tomato. Okay. I'm going to add some of my fresh arugula. Other items that would be nice on here would be some thinly sliced radish, if we had some different hot sauces we want to put on. But our tostada is here and ready to go. Nice quick appetizer. We could have added some of our shredded chicken to it. We could add ground beef. You could add avocado. Again, anything you guys have at home, we can add on here to make a nice open-faced taco, and we're calling them tostadas. The last dish that we're going to make with our beans is going to be beans for breakfast. And most Americans don't consider beans for breakfast, but as we move into Europe, we see lots of beans for breakfast over there. Even as we move down south into South America, we can see beans for breakfast. So we're going to take our tostada to the next level, and we're going to use it for breakfast by making a Huevos Rancheros dish. Okay, we're going to start with a similar process. This time I'm using 2 of our fried corn tortillas. These corn tortillas you can buy fried already, or you can fry them yourselves. It's up to you. I like to buy the pre-fried ones. It's a lot easier than turning my fryer on for 2 little tortillas. Okay. Set these on our plate. Okay. We're come by, we're going to add our pepper jack cheese again. This time we're going to top our tostadas with fried eggs. So I did over easy eggs, which means my yolks are still running. As I eat this, the fat that's in the yolks is gonna pair really nicely with the black beans and all of our other toppings. So we're gonna add our fried eggs. You can do scrambled if you want. It's up to you on how you want your eggs to be on here. But in order for it to be Huevos Rancheros, we need eggs in some way, shape, or form. Ground chorizo pairs perfectly with this dish as well. Okay. When I'm topping this dish, I like to use a Salsa Picante, which is a warm salsa. You can go to the grocery store, you can go to the pantry, find any salsa. We can use Rotel. Heat Rotel up in a pan, get it nice and warm. We're going to add this on top of our eggs. This again is going to add acid. My Salsa Picante has cumin in it. It has oregano. It's going to be just a salsa on top of our huevos. Okay. More garnishes. We can come through with a little bit of onion if you want it. If you had some sliced jalapenos, would be really nice. Garnish with a little arugula in the middle. Maybe a little cilantro around the plate. Squeeze of a lime. If you want sour cream, add sour cream, right? This is your Huevos Rancheros. Make it the way you like it. But by adding eggs, really cheap, really accessible, we're adding more protein, and we can make a very easy Huevos Rancheros dish. Those are all the dishes that we've prepared for you guys today. They're easy. Most of the items you'll find in your pantry and Big Orange Pantry. We look forward to cooking with you guys in the future.